Hello, welcome to the Weekend Review. It's been another dramatic few days in this Premier League season with everything still to play for at both ends of the table. So there is plenty for Karen Carney, Don Hutchison and Chris Foy to discuss over the next couple of hours. That was hard fought for Liverpool, but they got there in the end. What did you think watching the game?
I thought Everton made it really difficult for them. As Frank Lampard said, good shape, countered quite well. Just the end product wasn't there, made Liverpool work for it. But I think second half Liverpool were a lot better. I thought they got into the scrap in the first half and then started to find their rhythm the second half and deservedly won it.
They've got a great bench and he uses it very well, Jurgen Klopp, doesn't he? He uses it as well as anybody. And I know people at home go, well, it's not that difficult. You've got really good players. But it's not just a question of chucking them on. You've got to have a purpose and a structure to it when you make your changes.
And wait till next season when it's 5.
Oh, yeah, don't.
That's another topic for another day. But it's Liverpool's strength. I said it going back to the Arsenal game when they bring the likes of Mo Salah on and Firmino on, the strength is there. And I think with Jurgen Klopp, he knows his back five. He knows which he prefers. We always think, is it going to be Matip or Konate? I think we've got a fair idea what his best three is in midfield. But when you look at the five up front, I think Jurgen Klopp picks his three on what the opponent is. And there might be big hitters on the bench. Sadio Mane come off. He was on a yellow card. But he can bring big hitters on. He can bring Divock Origi on in this fixture. I think it's 6 and 10, which is just incredible.
Just for this fixture.
Just for this. Just give him a statue. Just for this fixture.
Let's have a look at the goals then, and actually particularly look at Salah's cross here and the way that he manufactures the cross. Karen, talk us through the technique in this, because it's brilliant.
Just the whole build-up was really good. The fact that obviously Salah likes to go out into these wider areas, and it's just the 1-2 comes back, and that's what Origi does. It gives him the focal point, and you're right, kind of like stabs it into the floor, which is dink the back post. But
he's got him pinned, Karen, hasn't he? Origi's got Alan pinned.
I think because Everton dropped so deep and they're in that block, you need someone like Origi who's a focal point for him. Maybe with the others, they kind of all roam. It doesn't really affect him as much. But what he does, he sets it up, and you're right then. And Salah's really difficult because he's running onto it at pace, and then to get the back lift behind it, and then your left winger left back Robertson coming in. They switched off around the back post. Everton, poor defending, but it's a lovely goal. But you're right to have that focal point Origi, and then they add on sell-on value for him, don't they? Every time they play him, he scores, and they're right. There's another 10 million on for him because he's so good. So
it was incredible that the way Origi come on, then all of a sudden just sort of stood still in his position. And he was pinning Alan, pinning centre-backs, and also for the first time in the game when he came on, it was a chance for Mo Salah to bounce little 1-2s off him. Everton were so defensive and trying to be solid in their shape, as Karen said, and trying to be a little bit dogged. It's one of them games where you play in them, and it depends on what side you're playing in. If you're playing in the blue half, like I've done, you try to make it ugly, and you try to rat around, and you put your foot in, and you have all the dark arts. If you're playing for Liverpool, what happens is you get sucked into the opposition style, and then for 45 minutes Liverpool were nowhere near at it, but that was credit Everton. And then Jurgen Klopp's gone in at half-time, he's gone, hey, settle down.
What has he said? Play the game.
Settle down.
Play football.
No, he would have said, Mark, I'll guarantee you. And he might have phrased it slightly different, but on our day the manager would have said, settle down, do not get sucked into their style. The second half Liverpool played.
Yeah, and you could hear the relief, couldn't you, around Anfield when that goal went in, and you could just see suddenly, because there's so much pressure on with Man City having won the day before, and then Origi does get his goal. Yeah, his traditional goal against
what a week
Everton.
though. What a week. Beating Man City, beating Man United, and then beating Everton. And this was, Divock Origi. I mean, Diaz, come on. I mean, if you see Diaz as one of his very first touches, that one's a bit of a fluke. He's going for goal. That's not an assist that he's meant. But the bit of skill he produced on the left-hand side when he'd come on, the whole of Anfield were just like off their seats thinking like, this guy's incredible. And he's going for goal there. It's a bit of a fluke, but he knows, Origi, doesn't he? He's got a sniff of it. Thinking,
look, ball watching, isn't it, Karen?
There's a weakness to Everton of diagonal balls coming across. The first goal was exactly the same, and then that one was exactly the same again. It comes off. Origi, the overhead kick comes back, and he can come in on the other side because he knows that no one Everton, they ever check their shoulders. No. You can just constantly go off the back shoulder of them, and right place. Still a difficult header, to be fair to him, but right place, right time.
Let's talk to Chris Foy, the Evertonian, and then he will change into Chris Foy, the independent referee, in a second. Chris Foy, the Evertonian, says what?
Oh dear.
Do you need some tissues?
I've used them all this season, Don. I've got none
Got any left?
It's It was a difficult afternoon for the Evertonians. I think, you know, Liverpool are flying at the minute, aren't they? And it was a typical Merseyside derby. And I have so much sympathy with Stuart Atwell, the referee, because at times the job was impossible, wasn't it? Yeah. You know, I mean, some days as a referee you can cross the white line and you conduct the orchestra, so to speak, and players play and you stay out the way. But yesterday, every decision, every challenge, there was so much going on. It was feisty, to say the least.
And of course, the crowd getting involved in that, including the Evertonians up the Anfield Road end. OK, let's go through a few contentious issues then with Chris and get his view on them and how Stuart Atwell dealt with them. So let's take them in order. Chris, let's start with this one here. Anthony Gordon, who was very much involved in these sorts of incidents as well.
He was indeed, yeah. I mean, he's obviously on the left and he's in and out, he's up and down, and he goes to ground there. And we've talked many times about refereeing positioning and making the right decision. And when you're in the right position, you generally are going to make that correct decision. And where Stuart positioned himself, made sure that he got this right. And it's a clear act of simulation, diving. And Anthony Gordon quite rightly receives a yellow card, even though he's a little bit upset. But when you see it back, it is a dive. There can be no complaints there.
He's a really good player. He does not want to get a reputation. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you don't want to kind of get tarnished with that he goes down too easy, and then you lose. Actually, there was a couple of others where I think he probably could have had something, but maybe because of what's happened in there, he's got that reputation. The referee's like, I'm not buying into it now, and you can understand the referee got that spot on. There was not enough contact. It was completely soft. I think if it was just the way he went down, theatrical. If he'd kind of gone down a little bit more organically, he might have had a little bit more of something to say, but it's just not enough.
They've had 6 yellow cards for simulation this season, Everton. That's half of the entire league's numbers.
Desperate. That's what it was. It was desperate from Anthony Gordon, who was on fire, by the way. I've got to say, what a player, and he has been all season. And he gave Trent a big game, and Trent was on a yellow card, who'd done him close to the halfway line. Terrific performance, but that's something he's got to knock out of his game, because you wouldn't want to be seeing him do that every single week, because he's better than that.
So at 0-0 then in the second half, let's have a look at this one, because this was one that a lot of people were talking about afterwards, particularly the blue half of Merseyside. And what they're saying is if it had been up the other end and it had been Mo Salah, it would have been given. Chris Foy.
I think this is a decision that will divide the city, won't it? If you're a red, it's not a penalty. If you're a blue, you are. Again, Stuart's in a great position to make a decision. You've got to go, look, you can see him there in shot, you've got to go with the on-field decision. He makes that call, he's happy with it. Is there enough there for the VAR to get involved? Because it's clearly and obviously wrong. We've seen people this morning chat about it and change their mind. I don't think it's a clear and obvious error, so you're always going to stay with the on-field there.
I do. I think when you see that again, when you see it again in real time, you look at 2 players that are desperately sprinting for the ball, and Gordon's always going to get there because of his pace. Then panic sets in with Joe Matip. Keep an eye on Joe Matip's left arm, and it's not a natural contact, the one there. There's aggression in the push. And I hate using this phrase, and you know me, I hate using the anywhere else on the pitch one as a foul. I hate that. But anywhere else on the pitch, that's a foul. It is, because I think there's aggression. I think I said a couple of weeks ago, when you get in the 18-yard box, the referees to give a penalty, there is always a high tariff of foul. But I think when you look at Joe Matip there and he's running stride for stride, then Anthony Gordon gets ahead of him. If there's no push in the back, there wouldn't have been a foul.
This does show how hard this is, Karen, because all of yesterday went, that's not a foul, that's not a foul. The more I've watched it, the more I'm seeing that push. With the left arm, Karen, for me, I think there, in his back.
Where I think sometimes wingers get punished is that if you're stood still and you get a little push, you're not going to get knocked over. When you're running at full speed and you're off balance, that slightest bit of a touch is a foul because it takes you off balance. For me, that should have been a penalty. And I think if that hadn't happened, he would have won the foot race. So, but again, it goes back to the previous incident. It's probably gone against Gordon, where you're thinking he's gone down again.
Hard for the referee.
It's hard,
because the referee's trying to keep up with 2 players at full speed, and he's trying to get an angle, and he's trying to get a view, which is impossible. That's where the referee's lying on the VAR team.
I agree with you, but I think it's very hard for VAR. I still have a lot of sympathy with VAR not getting involved, even though I now think it's a penalty. That'll be a good ref, wouldn't it? Because it'd take about 24 hours for me to give it. I think that's still quite a high barrier.
What percentage would you say that's a penalty? I would lean 70-30. Everton.
Yeah. I wouldn't go any harder than that.
As would you say?
I wouldn't go any harder than that, but yes, 70-30.
I think the other thing as well is, had Stuart given a penalty,
it wouldn't have been overturned.
It wouldn't have been overturned.
No, I agree.
So it's one of them, yeah.
And I think that's
still...
why. And I think, but again, that underlines why I think it's fair enough VAR probably didn't get involved.
Look, you've got to trust the referee, and you know the first decision was spot on, and they're going, well, he's in a good position. We trust him. We don't see enough. So, but being a former winger, I think that's a penalty.
See, it's very hard for Stuart Atwell to see what you both described very well, which is it was sort of an elbow in the back, wasn't it? Then the straightening of his elbow.
And I've got to say, Chris, from a referee's point of view, that must have been a ref's nightmare, that sort of game yesterday, because when you've got 2 or 3 decisions to make, you'd like to think they're going to get the majority right, but in this game it was like a dozen. And you can't get everyone spot on, can you?
It was everything. I mean, every time there was a contentious decision, I think Richarlison was injured and he was sat on the floor for a while. And then Decore trips somebody up.
Fabinho.
Then everybody runs in.
Yeah.
And then there's another foul and everybody runs in.
It's Jordan Pickford play acting when he's catching the ball.
Falling to the ground.
It was all high tension. It was all high tension stuff.
Henderson as well.
Yeah.
Henderson issue. There's a lot.
So
wasn't
much
there?
going. Yeah, so much going on. A really difficult assignment for the ref.
Sadio Mane got a yellow card. Let's have a look at that one through the prism of what Chris thinks. Oh, here we are. There's the derby. Correct, Chris. Right tariff, right level.
Yeah, we saw a law change, didn't we, a couple of years ago? We talk about contact with the neck or head. We saw players, of course, years ago get pointed in the cheek or somebody's put their hand
and going and getting some.
Where it's negligible, minimal. I think a yellow card's the correct outcome there.
Yeah. You're right, that would have been a red a couple of years ago, and I think we'd all agree that it's right that it's not a red.
Yeah.
No, it's just a fob, innit? It's just a fob off. There's no...
Yeah.
Get out my face. It's not like a real shove.
2 fobs, but still 2 fobs, still just a yellow. Still just a yellow for that. You just mentioned Richarlison. That was with the Henderson. This was towards the end when it was getting very feisty, and obviously time was running out from Everton's point of view. So down he goes. What has someone said to me yesterday? David Beckham got sent off for less in the World Cup.
Do you know what, Mark? The correct outcome with this decision was a yellow card. But Don and I were talking off air and he made a really good point. If there had been distance from Charlatans' boot and Henderson's leg and he's gone in with that fashion,
yes.
that becomes a different thing. That is just, his boot is on his leg and he pushes him. Yeah. And that's, I would describe as reckless. It's not violent.
Yeah. That's it. There was no distance.
No.
If Richarlison's studs are a little bit of a way off Jordan Henderson, and there's a little bit of a gap. This is my opinion. I might be completely wrong. And then he sort of does that action. You'd go, yeah, that's violent. That's a red card.
But actually, as he falls down, it was on it already, and he's pushed it away.
Wasn't it? Just about gets away with it.
Yeah, but is there a need for him to do it?
No, but it's just the way it is, isn't it?
I know, but I just think he's lucky. I think there's not a need to do it. Why did he do it? So then.
Ask our tackling expert.
Yeah, you are
yellow or red?
He knows what he's doing. You saw his face when he was going down.
What are you saying, yellow or red?
A bit in between.
Never made it red.
Come on, you're in VAR next season. Karen, tell us, what should we give?
We'll give a yellow to keep you happy.
You said to Don after every single one of his bookings, Don, was there any need to do that?
Just give a
really
yellow.
Any need to do that?
It'd get in my head though, but yeah, fine, Don. Fine, get on, crack on.
This is something interesting to look at in terms of the money spent between the 2 Merseyside teams since the summer of 2016. So, in ball terms, Everton have spent more. They've received less. Look at their net spend. So the difference between the two, it's double what Liverpool have. They've spent twice as much to win nothing and to go down the table.
That says to me that Everton over the years have just been chucking darts.
Yeah. Yes.
Right across the board just to try and bring in
almost
some
double the
players.
number of 20 million plus signings there. Oof. And you were saying, interesting off there, actually reflecting what's going on in the women's team this season.
Yeah, I think there's synergies between, the men's side and the women's side, where the women's side have spent no direction. They're going into their 3rd manager. Total synergies with the whole football club business model. How can you spend that much and regress? Yeah. And you look at Liverpool, they've got a strategy, they buy the right players, their recruitment spot on, their academy is fantastic, and win more trophies and spend less. It's phenomenal. That they need to have a real rethink about it, and it would be a bit massive if they go down. I mean, how do you get back from that? Like, you're just hoping if you're an Everton fan, you stay up and you just press the refresh button and very quickly.
That's terrifying to look at from an Everton point of view, isn't it?
It's awful. It just tells you everything about the model Everton side and how good Liverpool do things, where you don't have to spend more than £50 million on a player. There's unbelievable players out there. I keep saying when they signed Mo Salah at the time, there was 25 Mo Salahs out there. There was 25 Sadio Mane's out there. Matip's the same. There was 50 of them. There was 50 Firminos out there. But they've got player profile, and they know, Jurgen Klopp knows, I can make them better and I can take some of them to world-class level, but I don't have to spend £150 million on them.
Do you know what it is? You know, with Jota, they signed him for how much he presses and how repeatedly he does it, and the same for Keita. He wins the ball back in less than 5 seconds multiple times, and they're like, the profile, he fits our profile, we're going to put that together.
Can you imagine Liverpool have spent, 40-odd million on Jota and about 35, 40 on Diaz? It's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
Now you'd look at a pair of them and go, they're both close to £75 million each. God knows what Sadio Mane's worth and Mo Salah's worth.
I wonder would they have had to pay that much for Diaz? Only the fact that Spurs came in, they had to get in there quicker. They probably would have got him cheaper, really.
Probably.
Yeah, they had to pay more. Porter wanted more now, up front, which is understandable. Let's have a look at the bottom of the table, see where it leaves Everton, who we have to say now, Evertonians in the corner, are in serious danger of going down for the first time in a generation.
Massive trouble.
Properly serious danger.
Massive trouble. Burnley have been there before over the years, and they've had a new manager bounce. I'm looking at the Burnley players, people like Dwight McNeil, who are now playing with freedom, smiles on their faces. You see Vidra's goal later on, and there's a happy camp there under the new manager. And I think for Evertonians, the only thing they can do is potentially look at Leeds. And Leeds' next 4 fixtures are horrendous. Could lose all 4 of them. So they could try and suck Leeds in. But Everton at Goodison are going to have to rely on home wins. Away from home, I don't fancy them.
Don, how did you do it last time?
Graft. Exactly, more or less the same performance that Everton put in with a little bit more quality that they'd done against Liverpool. 17% possession doesn't really worry me. It was negative, but I totally get it. In a one-off fixture, there was no point Everton going to Anfield and going toe-to-toe with Liverpool, because a 2-0 loss playing that way doesn't damage their pride. Going to Liverpool, going to Anfield and trying to outplay them and getting done 7, because that's what it would have been. It would have been 6 or 7. The gulf in class is too big. So home form is key, and then having that attitude away from home in the remaining fixtures can be done. That's what we did.
What do you think, looking at the bottom of the table from Everton's point of view?
I think all the 3 that are involved, in particular Everton, you're looking at, we hope the other teams have a beast. Actually, it's not actually on us. We're hoping that everyone else, we're in such a bad situation. We hope that Leeds get dragged into it. We hope Burnley, and actually, it seems like everyone's looking at everyone else instead of looking at themselves, which is, it happens when you're in that battle, but it is... I agree with Don. I think their performance was a lot better. I think the final third, I think they rushed when they got into the final areas. But I saw a more organised side, and the home they are good at home. The fans are phenomenal, as you both know. And I think that might just be enough. But it's going to be a real battle for them.
It's
very
going to be nervy as well.
Very worrying.
You were talking about a few of the arts yesterday, which they were early on. Jordan Pickford, about 20 minutes in, wasn't it? Catching the ball.
Jordan Pickford's got
sitting
history.
on it. Yeah.
Jordan Pickford's got history. I remember him doing, not this, but I remember him leaving a little bit on Mandzukic against Croatia, and that come back to bite him. And now, why on earth would you do this 20 minutes into a game, knowing there's every chance that Liverpool are going to create chances?
Which they did. So what happened? And it was 2-0.
This is brilliant.
Yeah. that got a big roar.
Moments. If Everton are winning with 5 minutes to go and you want to take the mickey and you want to rile the Liverpool fans, that's the time and the place to do it. You don't do it at 0-0 20 minutes in.
No.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous.